Jason Carl. Jason Carl. Jason Carl.
Let's tell a vampire story.
Hi, family. We here at McStabber Studios take the emotional well-being of our viewers very seriously. And due to the personal horror nature of Vampire the Masquerade, some of the content of our streams could cause some strong emotional responses. If you feel like that has happened to you during any of our streams, take a moment, take a break, mute the stream, or just skip an episode. Or if you decide that you want to sit through it and watch it, we are available in chat to talk you through it if you need that. Ultimately, we want you to take care of yourself. Do what you feel like you need. Thank you for joining us on this dark journey, and we hope you enjoy this episode of DC by Night, Vengeance Waits.
Good evening, everyone. It's Twitch again. Here I am to give you the latest scoop from the darker side of the world. Down in New Orleans, rumor has it that the town is being filled with some weird graffiti. There's broken wagon wheels everywhere. I wonder what that's coming from, everyone. Maybe you'll have to find out. If you want to know about it, pop on over to my site, Twitch, and take a look at Sanguine_Nights. Maybe you'll find out more. I got word from Atlanta as well. Down in Atlanta, it seems there's a new group of shepherds. They seem to want to make Atlanta a better place now that the Sabbat has flounced out to go over to the east. Of course, we don't know when and if they'll return, but if they do, we'll have to see how that ends, won't we? If you want to see more on that, of course, pop on over and look at ATL by Night. Up in Vancouver, it seems the Clan of the Moon somehow figured out how to put someone in charge. I didn't think you could lead that group, but I'm sure someone has to herd those cats. If you want to hear about more on that one, maybe you should look at my Vancouver by Night section. We come to LA. Over in LA, it's quite interesting. The truth seems to be holding up, though I'm not sure how. And of course, we heard the great one and only Nellie G had some sort of grand party, but we weren't invited. No. Well, I guess you'd have to look at the World of Darkness to find out more on that now, wouldn't you? And finally, we come to DC. All kinds of oddities in DC. First, the terrorist incident in Baltimore, and now one of the prominent clubs in DC has burnt to the ground, the Black Magic. Of course, there's no listed body count, but those of certain kinds don't really leave evidence, do they? And I've also heard that one of the most vocal people in the town is turned up missing. Shall we say a person of a messenger persuasion. Interesting to see. Maybe we'll have to find out what happened to him and who's behind this recent batch of arsons. Of course, if you're hearing this, you already know where to find that information now, don't you? So, I can't stay long. I've got to get out of here now before I get found. But don't worry. Good old Twitch will come back and he'll fill you in on what's going on. Goodbye.
And there we go, because it restarted. I forgot that I had the video set on loop. That would have been an interesting intro. We'd have run the intro all night long.
All night long.
All night. Of course, good evening. Welcome to McStabber Studios DC by Night. I am, of course, Shanky McStabber.
And I'm Relyn, Shanky's wife, and I play Lily Sanger, Primogen of Clan Toreador in DC.
And tonight's something different than what we've done in the past. Tonight, we are actually doing we've done it once before, the story so far. Mm-hmm. This is a catch-up episode for people who haven't watched from the beginning, because we understand it can be kind of overwhelming when you see someone's in 23 episodes in to jump into a stream at that point without being able to really know what's going on. So by doing this, we can allow for people to watch the first story so far, episode 0, and then maybe watch Letters from Lily, and then also watch this one, and then good to go. Now you're ready to watch episode 24, which will be this Sunday. So
Yeah.
it's a way to do it. We haven't done any of these question and answer sessions in a while anyway, so I figured it's a good time to do it.
Yep, and while Shanky is doing the story so far summary, which he has worked diligently to outline out all episodes that we have streamed, I am actually going to be muted. We will do a question and answer, ask me anything after he's done with the summary, but I will be monitoring chat and noting your questions. So if you have questions as he brings up items that happened in our stream, go ahead and put them in chat, and I'll make sure they get addressed once we do the question and answer portion.
Diligent. Is that what we're calling what I did? But okay, we'll go with that. I was diligent today. So to start things off, I'm going to slightly summarize what happened in the story so far, the episode 0, just to establish where we started. This coterie journey really begins back in LA. They all fled DC for their own reasons. Most of them involved the Sabbat, though Lily had already been in LA. Not in LA, but had been in San Francisco prior to the fall of Vitel the first time, when the Camarilla brought justice upon him and supposedly sent him to final death. But then on a night at the end of 2017, right at the start of 2018, there was a fateful event where they had to flee LA, mainly because of a blood hunt, which is the memorial, and that's covered in the story so far. But to set the scene, the coterie at this point, when they left, was Lily, Quartermain, and Locke. Steve was joined the coterie shortly thereafter, though events later realized that they had actually known him in LA. But when they arrived in DC, Locke didn't know who her sire was. Quartermain didn't really know who his sire was. And as far as Steve Perry was concerned, he wasn't sure who his sire was at all. He didn't have a name that would go with it. He had a face and a whole list of atrocities, but he did not have a name. And that's where they came to DC and established, of course, the Succubus Club. And through some rather negative issues or negative actions on their part, some pretty bad things they did, they managed to run Vitel out of town. And there's a whole speech that's in the first story so far. But now we're going to get into the major cast of characters. You, of course, have the coterie. We have Art Morgan. At the time, for this timeline in the beginning, he was the eternal hippie. Yeah, man, like, wow. Like, when you're as old as I am, man, you just kind of decide that you just can't deal with it anymore. So you're like up here on the wave and you go down and up. And that's how he began for the coterie, and that's how they met him. His lover was Tabitha. In many ways, she's a gangrel, but she was a bitter vet from the Sabbat Wars following Vitel's first fall, and seemed to be a lot more timid now, though the reasonings at the beginning was unclear to the coterie. You have Dorian Adams living in his magical castle, quite insane, thinks he's Dracula, and if you ask what Dracula, all of them from the movies, literally all of them. He has a daughter that he mentions named Esmeralda. We'll go more into her a little bit later. You have the Pontifex, Valois Sang, notorious Sabbat hunter from Montreal, come to DC to be the Pontifex. You have Cone Rose, who was briefly declared himself Pontifex, which those in the Tremere pyramid structure would not agree with. You don't just appoint yourself Pontifex. It doesn't work that way. So he was removed by Valois and has become regent and has been going through a somewhat period of punishment for his actions. You have Angelique, a Toreador, Angelique Stravinsky. She was in love with a Tremere named Piter, who died shortly before we started streaming, actually, through some very dark machinations of Miss Lily Sanger, because Lily wanted to save Angelique, but Piter was a follower of Karna, and Valois would not tolerate a follower of Karna in his chantry. Angelique has two brothers, Grigory Markov, who is actually Tremere anti-tribute, though They didn't factor until after the prince's coronation. And Ivan Markov, former KGB Bruja. It's a very odd family since they're actual biological brothers of one sister Tordor, one brother Bruja, and one brother Tremere. Makes a very odd combination of people. You have Victoria, the Scourge of DC, La Sombra, who made a deal with Stanford to be allowed to enter the Camarilla like many of the La Sombra. And in doing so, she's become not just the Scourge, but an unsettling influence for the rest of the kindred of DC. You had Wayland, proprietor of the Black Magic, his ghoul Raphael, and at this point, being referred to for tonight as a ghoul. For Clan Ventru, you have Karina Dobson, this now Sinshaw, and also Sinshaw for Vitel. She's managed to survive multiple princes and still remain Sinshaw due to sheer competence, and she can't be replaced easily due to her contacts. You have a Felix LaRue, who's the Ventru Primogen. An odd Malkavian named Razor, who Quartermain has a history with. Quartermain's sire wanted Quartermain to find and kill Razor for killing the last descendant of her line, and that's why Quartermain was embraced. And there's a bit of story with that, which will come up shortly, very shortly actually. You have the Prince Stanford Warwick, formerly of, Providence, Rhode Island. Stanford was removed from Providence for his rather brutal, overhanded tactics of running a city, and should tell you something with all the things that the Camarilla princes do that is so brutal, that he was brutal enough to be removed by his own Justicar, which is rather impressive when you think about it. You have Glenn, the notorious chainsaw using Nosferatu. Interesting character, really. He was the hatchet man. Amos, who only cared about mortals, did not care about vampire society. Stephen, which was Felix's personal servant. Then you get to the real oddities of the major characters. The Lupine Mother, living in Rock Creek Park. And Mother has an alliance with the kindred. Because of the Second Inquisition, it's a dangerous time. The alliance is that the Lupine won't start trouble outside their park, and any kindred who enters their park uninvited will die. And of course, Bloodlicker, who is her representative that comes out and speaks with the kindred. It's an interesting kind of a cast of characters in a lot of ways. Anything to add right now before I go further?
I think you've generally covered the cast.
You are muted.
I think you've generally covered the cast.
Those are the main ones. There's also, of course, Chaz and Rachel Tordor. Chaz, the coterie suspects has been compromised due to various events where his eyes would glow gold and he would not realize what he's doing or singing or saying. And he has a child named Rachel who figures prominently at the beginning of these episodes.
Doesn't much matter. Chaz is obsolete anyway.
Probably true. Probably true. In many ways. So the story picks up episode 1, and that's the first time I'm going to mention episodes, by the way. The coterie, after having a discussion with arranging Chocolate Drop to come and perform at Lily's Club, Razor comes, and oddly enough, Razor comes before the coterie and asks for assistance. He's Quartermain's enemy. Quartermain's supposed to kill him. But Razor comes forward and says he's found a Second Inquisition safe house that has information on the coterie, and he wants their help raiding the safe house. Now, even though enemies are enemies, when it comes to the Second Inquisition, you can't afford to have enemies among the kindred when survival's at stake. So the coterie agrees to help Razor with this little assault. And it was an odd assault because when they get in there, they find out Razor has lied to him. The reason for the assault wasn't information on the coterie, but the Second Inquisition had captured his wife Lola. It was actually a shock to the coterie. They did not know this psychopath, the killer that Razor is, had a wife. And that was the start of Quartermain. I think his position changed on Razor with that little event. And that's a big thing for the coterie, was this Second Inquisition raid. During it, Steve Perry managed to get an X-scope that he later put in the club. He also managed to get hard drives that he's determined to decrypt. Modern encryption can't be beaten that easy. But then again, you're kindred. You have eternity. Eventually, he'll crack the encryption and find out what was on it. It may be 10, 20, 30 years from now, but he'll do it. Many of the episodes at the beginning, to be honest, wasn't a lot going on. We had the chocolate drop where Lupine attacked, a young Lupine, that set the stage for trouble in Mother's pack. She's got an unrest going on. The younger Lupine don't feel you should make deals with kindred. That assault, of course, Angelique found out about Piter's death. Lily has not been caught to blame yet. Oddly enough, the Pontifex took the blame for that one. That came up rather interesting for a while there. And then, right before a series of riots that the coterie caused, had to look at her for that one because they caused it. They began seeing sightings of the former Pontifex, Helena. Helena.
Mm-hmm.
She supposedly had been beckoned, but they've started seeing her with some man they don't identify. Just in odd places in town. They haven't managed to encounter her in a time where they can actually take the time to investigate. But if she's supposedly beckoned, why do they keep seeing her in town? It's an interesting story that they haven't pursued yet, but they will. And then we come to the first of the guest appearances. This was Dr. Philo Exeter, a favorite of a lot of our viewers, I understand. Celador Mythica. Great player, great character. He comes to town because he's fulfilling a boon to rescue one Dr. Samuel Ludlow, who the coterie had originally met in L.A., a Malkavian with a rather odd curse for his clan. But they rescued him, of course, from Granger, who at this point Steve Perry feels is his sire, though the history between the two is rather dark. I'm not going to go into it here. That's for the first story so far. We reached Stanford's coronation. Yeah, the look on her face from that one. It's when Stanford is coronated after running Vitel out and running out proxy from another, or praxis declared by another prince, who had brought with her a gangrel sheriff that had 12 wolves with her. There were some serious negative connotations from them because they suspect that that particular sheriff had been working with the Second Inquisition, though they have no proof. At Stanford's coronation, there were many revelations, though. You found out that Glenn had killed Stephen, which is, again, Stephen is Felix's manservant. Glenn had killed Stephen's daughter, which it came out was a frenzy incident, but it was still death. And in that, because it was Elysium and Glenn frenzied over finding Stephen was there, Stanford had to enact punishment of Glenn was to be staked for 1 year, in which time he would lose all of his status, all of his hunting, all of his domain, and after a year he would be unstaked and could start rebuilding, would start at the bottom again. It was kind of a getting off lightly in some ways, but Glenn had been very instrumental in the prince's ascension, along with the coterie, of course. There was also a rather large revelation. We mentioned Esmeralda before. Dorian's supposed daughter. Her name is Esmeralda Sang, daughter of Valois Sang, the Pontifex, and she has been embraced by La Sombra. So let's run that one down slightly. You have a La Sombra child of a Tremere Sabbat hunting, or the Pontifex who's a Tremere Sabbat hunter. His daughter was embraced La Sombra. Current theories around the table is, of course, that she was embraced as punishment for his activities in attacking the Sabbat, though why she fled to Dorian's, I do not think they've figured yet. At this point, Rachel, who was Chaz's daughter we mentioned earlier, she had been arrested, was generally out of control, and actually had backed the different prince. But at the insistence of Lily, she had been saved, with the caveat that she would no longer be presented to Vampire Society. She was to be returned to being a child and placed in Lily's care until such time as she could prove that she would understand the politics of the situation and not randomly get arrested repeatedly for public intoxication, which is how Lily found out she was a drug addict. Tabitha, Locke's own sire, was saved from embracing Locke without permission by Locke pleading her case, because though Stanford was a new prince, he felt laws that had been broken in his city before he became prince, he was going, as a sign of strength, was going to enforce. But Tabitha was spared by Locke's permission. Then we get to an unfortunate incident. We mentioned the Lupine that had attacked Lily's club at one point. Lily had drank from said Lupine. Now, for those who do not understand, Lupine blood, while tasty, makes one tend to frenzy a little bit more often. And after a botched feeding attempt, got a little bit of PCP in Lily's blood. She was on the edge, riding that frenzy beast, when Rachel, shall we say, decided to challenge authority.
Lily felt like Jesus.
Yes. This was the point in the story where Lily diablerized Rachel, her child. Now, this is a gray area. Generally, diablerie is, of course, frowned upon in the city. But as it's a child now that is not presented, is it got full vampire rights? Quartermain had questions on that in a lot of ways. So, of course, Quartermain asked the prince, and the prince's response was to laugh. One less rose in his garden, which set the stage for the prince obviously not liking the Toreador that were in his town. We come to the Riot Night, an infamous night for the coterie. A very big, infamous night, because the riots were their fault, though they were directed to start them. These riots were caused actually by a drug developed by Thin Bloods that caused people to be not quite ghouls, but not quite mortals either. We call them ghoul minus, or maybe kind plus, right in between ghoul and kind. But when the drug ran out, the withdrawals hit, as always, from the blood addiction, from being partially ghouled, which caused the riots to break out. That's where the jokes of shoe polish come from, because it's Thin Blood alchemy. Odd things are used to make it. This one involved shoe polish. But it was the night of these riots that they found Chaz was being controlled by a Methuselah. The Golden Eyes had enthralled 50 people to protect the conservatory where Chaz lived. Also, it marked the death of Amos, the people-watching kindred, at Quartermain's hands, though an accident. It was still the death of Amos. And at the prince's command, Stephen the Nosferatu was killed, Felix's manservant. Now, this was an odd murder for that one, because the prince had specifically said this must not come to light, because he did not want his Primogen Ventru to realize that the prince used the cover of the riots to assassinate his manservant, though he did get assassinated. And right after the riots, Quartermain gave Stephen's ring to Glenn. The ring was the Felix LaRue's family crest. That proved to be a mistake, though at the time he didn't realize it. I'm going to stop here. Is there any good questions that need to be answered now?
Not yet.
We're in the middle. Okay, good. I like to give a chance.
Go ahead and keep going.
Okay. Right after, when the riots had completed, certain events had transpired during the riots. The coterie found out afterwards. Wayland embraced Raphael when mortals had broken into his club and mortally wounded Raphael. There was no permission granted, but Wayland could not bear to lose his best friend that he had been with for 20 years as a ghoul, so he embraced him, much to the displeasure of the Toreador Primogen. We find out that Kyne had broken into Purgatory, which became Locke's club, and had threatened to violate Tabitha in Art's presence. And Art, the eternal hippie, found the one thing that would cause him to frenzy, that would cause a reaction that wasn't the peace and love, and that was threats against of Tabitha. And in that frenzy, he murdered 12 kind, which marked the change for Art. It marked the breaking of the hippie that was within him. In many ways, it was a false personality anyway, put in place at Art's request by Dorian. When Lily finds Wayland had been embraced, Raphael had been embraced by Wayland, sorry. Lily hatched an ambitious plan, a very ambitious plan. She went to Stanford and admitted that Wayland had embraced Raphael without permission, and asked that her favor that was owed to her for helping Stanford take the throne be repaid by allowing Raphael to exist, not destroying a child created without permission. And Stanford's response was to destroy Raphael but leave Wayland alive. For those who know the traditions, a child embraced without permission, both the child and the sire are forfeit. Lily would have none of that. She saw potential in both of these Toreador. So she blackmailed Prince Stanford Warwick with the knowledge that he had ordered Stephen's death, and that should he not agree to her terms, there would be, that would get out. And it would cause a rift soon after he had assumed his throne, before he had really been able to stabilize his rule. Of course, Stanford had planned to kill her anyway, until she offered one little carrot, so that it's not just blackmail with a stick. She offered to become Stanford's spy on the Primogen Council, to relay to him everything that the Primogen Council discusses, the plots, all the plans behind the scenes. And for a prince, that is a juicy little bit of info to have a birdie on the Primogen Council, someone who will undermine their own council for power of the prince. So for that reason alone, he allowed her to think the blackmail applied. Steve, good old Steve Perry, nice guy in a lot of ways. Heady with his new power as Primogen, had announced on the phone calling the Octagon House that it's Steve Perry, Primogen of the Clanless, calling. That little bit of info, though Karina, always the efficient one, tried to suppress the info. A raid occurred during the riots on the Octagon House. The Tremere Chantry was attacked by Second Inquisition. Karina arranged to make sure that all evidence that it was Steve's phone call that caused this raid to disappear. But in return, Steve was going to be her spy on the Primogen Council and to push her agenda. Now, of course, Karina's a Ventru, and there's a Ventru Primogen. But she is trying to use the Primogen of the Clanless to also push her agenda. If she has the ear of Felix, that gives her 2 of the 5 Primogen of the city working for her agenda. Very shrewd move on her part. And that's where I think Steve realized that the woman that they thought was helpful and knowledgeable was truly the shark. On the subject of Steve, poor Steve. He awoke after these riots, shortly thereafter, to find a ring by his bedside with a stylized S. You'll actually see it on his finger on stream. And a voice speaking to him. The voice, and the coterie knows this, is Sybil. 4th generation La Sombra Methuselah, called by many as the North American antediluvian, who the coterie had accidentally found was sleeping under their city, had begun to talk to Steve, promising him that those who had looked down on him for what he was and those who had hurt him, like Granger, would pay, and pay dearly for what they've done, if he would but serve her and do what she says. And in many ways, Steve, who has learned the harsh reality of kindred power and being a Kaitif, took the offer, because at least it's a way for him to get something. The riots also revealed that one other kindred of the city had died or was missing at first. Melissa, a 100-year-old kindred trapped in a 7-year-old's body, gangrel, embraced and been living around DC for 100 years. By many, a masquerade breach in and of itself. It was during these riots that Victoria the Scourge decided it was the time to correct something that should have been taken care of long ago. Melissa should not have existed, Victoria decided. And she did take it in her hands to eliminate the Eternal Child. And she did, being a Lasombra, who is the daughter of Tally, the Tally. She's constantly wanting to test her abilities to take on a 100-year-old gangrel. Though a 7-year-old's body was still a 100-year-old gangrel, was a challenge for her. One she won. And for those who watch the stream know what happened to the familiars of poor Melissa. The cat Bumpkin, the giant gold cat Bumpkin. Victoria now uses that cat as a handbag, which is disturbing. Yes, press F. Very disturbing. And it was during these revelations that Melissa was missing that we meet Sabrina. Sabrina Damask, played by Unconscious Celestial, one of our guest players, who had known Melissa many years ago, knew art before the change, before the hippie had come. And there's a secret with Sabrina that is yet to come out fully. And her story is getting explored, and I bid people to wait. There's a lot more to come for her. We get a visit from Yakatarina, who comes from Europe, a European Ventru. Come to the city on a mission from Quatermain's sire to make sure Quatermain is doing what he was told, to kill Razor, though Quatermain refuses. Yakatarina was the oddity. An old European kindred, very powerful, comes to DC. Stanford, still new on his throne, is afraid to offend, of course, the older, more established kindred of Europe right now, especially when he's unsure on his own power base. So he makes a lot of concessions to Yakatarina, played by Menta, of course, Rob Menta, amazing player. She later is named Keeper of Elysium, which is an oddity for a kindred who's been in the city maybe 2 weeks. It shows the level of connections she's had. These are the parts of the story where you'll hear of an orphanage. I'm not going to go into big details. It was an atrocity. It is what broke Tabitha. She had to clean up a mess made in an orphanage involving children being embraced at the orphanage. And I'm sure everyone in the channel will understand what I mean by cleanup. And it did break Tabitha in many ways. We have a visit to the infamous Madame. The Madame is an odd kindred. She lives in a very large building right next to, it's a hotel next to the Capital One Towers. The oddity is, of course, she lives on the top floors of the penthouse. You do not go there unless you know she knows you're coming. The coterie had met her once before to get a book for Stanford. They returned there because she wanted her book back. When they get there, this odd madam, who speaks intermittently, she has a butler, and her words are either her mouse or the butler's. The coterie was told she's Malkavian, though she's always, whenever anyone uses Sense the Unseen, surrounded by many, many, many spirits, wraiths, ghosts, and specters, which she uses as messengers sometimes. The madame had a startling revelation. She saw that Sybil was looking from behind Steve's eyes. She talked of Chaz's Methuselah, and she mentioned we are awake while the others sleep, revealing there are 3 Methuselahs active in DC, playing their eternal game. It's the sleeping Sybil, one who they don't know. They don't even know the clan, the one that controls Chaz. And of course, if you believe the wording the madam used, herself. Though who would we be? Is it her and the butler, or is there another with that? It's a very interesting portion of the story, to be honest, that they are afraid to find out about, because This prince won't go in that tower. Vitel would not go in that tower. No one will challenge her in her haven at all. It is about this time, I believe, that the coterie went to Baltimore to take on Cassandra, an Malkavian who hated Steve Perry and fled D.C. After backing the wrong prince and generally causing issues for Stanford, who declared a blood hunt on her in return. You'll notice a pattern with Stanford that he has supposedly changed his ways from the brutal side of him that got him removed in Providence. But unfortunately, there's a pattern of him not changing. But it was in Baltimore that they worked with Jack One Punch Myers. That is his nickname. Former bartender of Purgatory now, which is, of course, Locke's Bar. He takes them to an event, a jazz festival. It was actually celebrating 100 years of jazz, where they encounter Cassandra Cassie. And this created one of the oddest things in my story I've ever seen. When her dominate powers failed to work on the coterie, she stood to take her death like she'd lived, faced it head on. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't going to blubber and make a fool of herself. She died head high. It was a contested diablerie. Steve and Quartermain both tried to diablerize her because, as many know, when there is a blood hunt, diablerie is fine. And in this one, in the end, Quartermain won the contested diablerie. I don't know many storytellers out there that tried to figure out how to do a contested diablerie, but it was funny. It was also where the coterie had learned that Vitel, though he had fled D.C., had only fled to Baltimore. He was gobbling up baronies in Baltimore and Anarch City, giving them the choice to submit or die. He's being called the Roman, which it makes sense in a lot of ways. The Camarilla, they've regained D.C. Baltimore has not been a Camarilla city. It was Sabat. As long as Vitel stays there, many are content to say that he'll be left alone for now. But we don't know. Getting out of Baltimore, they actually got the help of a toreador named Natalie. Good old Natalie, played by Spectre Alafet, who's a regular in our chat and a regular. Actually, she's our official DC News correspondent because she tweets constantly about what's going on in our chronicle. Constantly. It's amazing stuff. Helped him escape in return for being allowed to return to DC because she was wanting to get out of the Anarch City and become a member of the Tower. And for helping escape, the prince actually granted that. It was here we revealed Smiling Jack, Maniacal Jack, though many, when you hear Smiling Jack, think bloodlines and a gangrel from the West Coast.
Bruja.
Or a Bruja, sorry, not a gangrel. I always say gangrel, I don't know why. But no, this Jack is the lieutenant of Vitel, Zimichi, who has been loyal for a long time and does some pretty horrible things around the city in Vitel's name. He'd been gun poking around the city, and his story is not done. His is tied with Natalie's quite a bit. So when Natalie returns, that'll be part of it. Then we get back to Steve, right after coming back from Baltimore and finding Vitel. Steve wakes and has an urge to go on a walk to Southeast DC, part of town that's full of crime and drugs. And Steve goes into an abandoned building and walks to a part of the basement and enters a hole in the wall that takes him to a stone corridor that shouldn't be there. And crossing this hole, he felt the coldness of death, that feeling that he felt only once before, and that was when he was embraced right at that edge of dying. And while wandering in this tunnel, he finds he's actually in one of Zelios' labyrinths, which Quartermain, for those who have watched the first one will understand, he has the Zelios lore sheet. So there is a labyrinth under DC that is part of it and an interesting story. But the labyrinth is where Sybil has been sleeping. And Steve goes to her bedchamber to see the fourth generation Methuselah who sleeps. And she sleeps there, still when he comes in. But as many elders do, when they're sleeping, they can still use many of their powers. And through use of telepathy and some other powers, she shows herself to his mind and explains to him that he is going to be her tool, her herald to announce her coming. And she tells him frankly that she will use him, she will hurt him, she might even destroy to him, but she will not lie to him. And he can count on that fact, that she will not lie. And for Steve, who's been lied to and tortured and abused, that appealed. And then she revealed something that challenged everything Steve Perry knows of himself. That he was not the child of Granger. He is not a Kaitif that's a failed Malkavian. That the reason she could contact him is that in his blood lies the blood of Lasombra. It's weakened, it's not fully formed, it's not just a generation, but he is a failed Lasombra, a Kaitif who did not get the full take of the Lasombra blood, and that's how she felt him. And that though he is a broken tool in many ways, her pure-blooded child, Vitel, had betrayed her. So she would use Steve. And in the end, he would gain power like he had never imagined if he survived. And she offered him a boon, a single boon. Told him as a gift he could drink from her while she slept. A single sip. He drank from the fourth generation Lasombra Methuselah while wearing her ring and pledging fealty to her. And in many ways, though the Curry at the time didn't know the full extent of what he had done, for Steve, it was a turning point where he'd been lied to. Granger had said he was his sire, but had tortured him. But Granger's known to be a master memory manipulator. Takes pride in rebuilding entire personalities. So you have Steve now wondering, who is he really? Who was he? Is any of his memories real? Is anything he thinks he knows real? How much of him has been rebuilt, reprogrammed, taken away? And how much does Granger know? What could somebody do to make Granger claim to be his sire when he's not? Well, those who know the Lasombra have many ways to force others to do what they want. But who is his sire? That's the big question. It's shortly after this that Q has decided he has enough of being sheriff. The death of Amos and being told to kill Stephen broke his confidence in many ways. Quartermain had a crisis of faith, and that crisis of faith told him he can't serve Stanford as sheriff. It compromises too many of his values. And in a lot of ways, Quartermain is still trying to hold on to his humanity. Of all the coterie, he's held on the most. Somehow. We meet Mallory the Thin Blood, played by the amazing Jake Indigo QT on Twitter from Q Times. He's known as Joey, if you watch the Long Beach by Night. Mallory the Thin Blood, an amazing character. Anytime you hear Mallory mentioned, just picture sass. Asking Locke if her name was Karen. An amazing character. We have where it stands now in the story. This is pretty current at this point. We have Quartermain investigating what happened to Glenn, who turned up missing right after Felix was told that Glenn had Stephen's ring. Now Glenn is missing. We have Amos's cart that supposedly had his notebook in it, missing. The cart was found, no notebook. Wolf hair found at the scene. We have the black magic burning. There had been arsons in the city, though this one didn't match the same as the rest of the arsons. All the other arsons used blood magic. This one did not use blood magic, but was an attempt to make it look like the same, a copycat. But it was in this fire that Wayland was destroyed, and Raphael come fleeing to Lily's club, burnt, barely even alive himself. Yeah. You gotta see it. Yep.
They exploded.
Yeah, it was not good. The Pontifex has started an investigation into the riot because he knows this was not a natural riot. There were supernatural events involved. The Coterie, of course, has a vested interest to not allow the Pontifex to do this investigation fully, because they will get the blame. It will fall on them because they were part of it. They must divert it to make sure that it dead ends. You have Lily investigating the black magic to find out what actually happened with Wayland. Because though the sheriff, now Art Morgan, who is no longer the hippie, who has become the 1600-year-old, almost 1600-year-old gangrel he always was, brother of Xavier the Justicar, the Xavier, his older brother no less. Art, as sheriff now, said he smelled dead kindred. But Wayland was not a kindred old enough to turn to dust. As those who understand, you age to the point of when you were embraced. So if you're old enough that your bones would have turned to dust, when you die, you turn to dust. But if your bones wouldn't have decayed yet, when you are given final death, you decay into your bones. Art said he smelled dead kindred, but no bones or remains were found. Now, yes, fires can burn up all your remains, but was the fire really hot enough to burn the skull and bits of bone? So Lily now has an investigation going. And an investigation that took an unexpected turn. Lily had been given a hint to hide, or at least protect herself, because she may be next for the fire bombings. The next night, she gets contacted to go for a walk by the same phone number. It's during that walk that an unexpected visitor meets with her. Lord Marcus Vitale had returned to D.C. to tell Lily that their riots had done some interesting things to the Veil. Now, for those who back the Cult of Blood, or Blood Gods Kickstarter, you understand there's a whole lot of new rituals and stuff and ceremonies in there involving how to kindred can pierce the veil and go cross into the land of the dead. All these riots caused so many deaths that the veil was very thin in a lot of places, and Vitale had ways to cross it and to observe from the other side. And he was in the black magic, watching when it burned, safely behind the veil, of course. Can't burn him back through there. The fire doesn't reach through. And he saw what happened to Wayland. But he will not tell Lily what happened until she gets him a ring from the Madame. Simple task. Get me the ring, and I will tell you what I know. He could obviously go in after it, but if she's as powerful as all the kindred suggest, it's easier to trade than to fight her. Lily agrees, though I suspect Lily understands that Vitale's not one who makes offers that you're allowed to refuse. He had ways to ensure that when he asked her, she did it, or she didn't leave the alley she was speaking to him in. You have the coterie looking into an old church that they had fought the sheriff that I mentioned before with the wolves and the Second Inquisition. They were met by a black spiral dancer, one they knew from L.A., a mute black spiral dancer. And for those who've played B. Dave's games, his Patreon games, they've probably encountered this same mute black spiral dancer before. But they met this one before they left L.A., and they fled from it, though I'd hope not. I'd hoped. When the prince was told that Wayland, who had become his herald, had died, the prince's response was odd. The prince responded, "Oh, well, I need another herald and one less rose in the garden." And when the discussion came to enemies, he started rambling about, "We'll burn them all out with fire." The coder, I think, at this point has decided that there's a problem with Stanford. His brutality is not going to end. Not at all. We have Grigori, the Tremere antitribu I brought up before, that because of the coterie rescuing Ivan from the Second Inquisition, was owed a life boon. And Lily has been using that life boon. Grigori used blood sorcery and some rituals to check for Wayland's at the black magic. And Grigori said he couldn't find Wayland there, but there was an odd resonance. A resonance that Lily has linked to oblivion powers and death. I'm going to let Lily's suspicions are hers or her own. She'll reveal later, I'm sure. We have Sabrina come back again, who reveals Esmeralda was having a fight with Dorian, an argument about her child is now in D.C., and that he didn't recognize her. Who that child is, we don't know yet. Esmeralda the La Sombra. We have Quartermain brokering peace with Razor finally. And that's where we left our coterie last time. Wanting to have something they haven't had in a while. As the storyteller, I'm going to say as a side note, it's been interesting to watch. In the beginning, the coterie was tight. When this story turned darker with the riots and Quartermain accidentally killing Amos, who Quartermain has a conviction, do not kill unless absolutely necessary.
And the political ambitions.
And the political ambitions of everybody involved caused a rift in the coterie. They broke apart. They've been fragmenting, going their own ways. But as anyone knows in the kindred world, the only advantage that you really have if you have a coterie is that coterie. And each of them has had information that the others vitally need, but they haven't been working together to share the information. So nobody else has those pieces to work together. And this is where we left them the last episode, with Sabrina noticing the coterie all staring at each other like they finally realized they need to have a talk, because they're a broken coterie, a coterie in name only. Steve, of course, loyal to Lily, though Lily questions his loyalty in many ways. Locke caught between being the Hound of DC, loyalty to that duty, but also loyal to her coterie. Quartermain was a sheriff, not anymore, not a part of the court officially. With Primogen in his coterie, it's an odd place to be for the players as a whole. And it's interesting to see where it goes. Team building exercises is actually the name of the next episode. So that brings everyone up to date. I know it's a little bit meandering. There was a lot of episodes, 23 episodes to cover. I only covered the big points. But you get an idea of the characters involved and what's happened. Why, when they say Dorian, everyone looks oddly. He's insane. He thinks he's Dracula. Lives in a castle. That Sabbat packs have disappeared trying to assault. You have Granger, who Steve hates. Thinks, or used to think he was a sire, but Steve's not sure if his memories are even real. You have Lily, who became Primogen but blackmailed the prince to save Waylon's life, and now a fire occurs that takes Waylon's life. And the prince doesn't care that Waylon died. You have a prince who's becoming more and more bloodthirsty, and doing it at a time when he doesn't have firm control over his own city. He is not in a good position. His own Primogen undermining him. You have a Scourge that is looking for challenges of fighting the eldest she can get her hands on and get away with fighting.
His Scourge is barely contained.
Yeah. It's a bad time in the city. And you have Vitel returning to poke around. Though he knows he can't retake the city. He can't. The Camarilla would never stand for Vitel to be Lord Vitel of DC. He will never let Vitel join the Camarilla. But as long as he stays in Baltimore, the Camarilla has bigger problems right now. Second Inquisition, retaking cities, the Anarch issues out west. It's not a good time for the Camarilla in a lot of ways. The Beckoning, they can't afford to take on Vitel in Baltimore as long as he stays away.
Okay, so I'm going to go through questions.
Go ahead. Let me hear some questions. I'm ready.
I'm going to go through questions, and then the ones that we've had so far, I'm actually going to work from the most recent back to the first. And then basically once we're done with the questions that were posted in chat while Shanky was talking, we'll do an Ask Me Anything, where you can ask anything of the storyteller or of me as Lily.
Yep, story. It can be about the story. It can be about how I do things. Questions about how, I approach storytelling. She approaches her players.
Right.
Questions about the other players, I'll answer if it's something that I feel comfortable answering.
Right. Otherwise, it wouldn't be right for us to try to divulge anything personal to their character. Got to respect that.
They all have their storylines.
Okay, so there was a statement made by Spectre Alifet that if the coterie was intact, it's a large threat to Stanford, with 2 Primogen and the Hound and a former sheriff in the same coterie. You are absolutely right, Spectre Alifet.
You are.
If the coterie can come together, Stanford is in deep shit.
Well, but The Stanford has carefully given instructions and driven wedges between the coterie members. And by picking Victoria as a scourge of Lasombra, a very old Lasombra, daughter of the Tally. Tally is infamous. Tally is the Lasombra that the other Sabbat used. If you wanted somebody protected, Tally did it. If you wanted them murdered, Tally did it. This is his biological daughter that was embraced and trained by him. Not embraced by him, embraced by somebody else, but trained by him, and obviously met enough of his approval he didn't murder her out of hand. She's the scourge. The coterie has a problem when it comes to her. And now that Art Morgan has reverted to thinking like a Justicar, because he almost was Justicar until they picked Xavier instead, the Prince has got two backers, one that's a ruthless monster, though she puts on a teeny bopper aura, which is an amazing character concept. When you see her, you'll understand. And a die-hard Gangrel Tower loyalist.
With a strong sense of justice.
With a strong sense of justice. The Prince is in a better position than it appears in that way. But were the coterie to find a way to convert Art against the Prince, to convince Art that it's in the Camarilla's best interest and the Tower's best interest, that Stanford not be Prince anymore, Stanford gets in a much more dangerous position. Beckett's spy friend, one of the famed.
I believe she was. I think it
so,
was.
Yeah.
I must admit I haven't read all of Beckett's.
I've gotten through a lot of it, but dear God, it's a huge book.
It's a huge book, and I haven't gotten through it all yet. I highlighted it on like the DC parts and a few other cities, but I haven't. Really
and for lore reasons, we took it as Beckett said that Vitale came back.
Right.
And now I brought him back that he was alive.
Right.
When he did survive.
So going back again, Machete.
Machete, I love the name.
Machete,
that's
Machete.
amazing.
I don't know how you pronounce that, but
no, it's Machete.
Machete.
I like it. Machete.
You had made some statements about how the Bloodlines game had a inconsistency with the siring without permission issue, and I'll kind of expand on that a little bit, because I'm, of the two of us, I'm the one that has actually played through Bloodlines.
To my admission, to my shame,
multiple times.
I have never finished Bloodlines. I get partway through and then I get sidetracked. It's part of my ADHD. I finish almost no games ever.
While Bloodlines is now considered a part of the lore, we are not. My personal opinion on that whole lore aspect, LaCroix was a weak prince. His primogen ruled him. His enemy was a very charismatic Bruja. And at that scene where the child is spared but the sire is killed, the Bruja, his enemy, who is exceptionally charismatic, called him on the bullshit of killing both. So that's why that happened. In DC, there is no... Lily's as close to charismatic to go up against a prince in the city that there is, to be perfectly honest. And she did what she had to. And
this is one of the things I've stressed as storyteller, because R'lyn playing Lily, Steve Perry playing, or Urian playing Steve Perry, they're both just over a year old players in playing Vampire. They haven't been playing it that long. And one of the things I stressed in the beginning, when it was taking a political turn, is cities are run one of two ways. You have a strong prince and a weak primogen council, or you have a weak prince and a strong primogen council. There is no in between.
Right.
Either the primogen council is running the city and the prince is a figurehead, or the prince is running the city and the primogen council is the figurehead. And in that case of Bloodlines,
the Primogen Council was the strength.
The strength was Primogen Council. You see it in Chicago. Weak princes, Primogen Council running. The Primogen Council are the ones who can decide who gets to sire children. That's not normally how it's done. But if the prince isn't strong enough to enforce his will,
right,
then he's not strong enough.
And the fact is, in DC, Stanford is at the time of his coronation and at the point where Lily approached him to spare Wayland and Raphael, he was technically a strong prince. And Lily, being a primogen, fairly young for a primogen no less,
being willing to spy for him, saved her.
But not only being willing to spy, which saved her, she was ballsy enough to blackmail him.
But see, Lily is...
And that was the first step in starting to undermine his reign.
But in a lot of ways, Lily is, though she's the oldest of the coterie, in Grand Vampire scheme of things, she's still young.
She's not even a century old
Right.
yet, and her generation at that time it was already 12.
Yeah, but
yeah,
she's young for a primogen in particular, and not a strong primogen in some ways because she's still establishing her power base.
Right.
So for Stanford, it would have been nothing to destroy her out of hand.
Right.
There would have been no consequence.
That's
to
why
him.
she had to sweeten the pot.
Right. Because he could replace her with an older, well, there is no other Toreador in DC that were capable. That was one thing about DC. If you read the actual lore of DC, the Tremere and Vitel had spent a long time basically beating the Toreador down in DC. The Toreador don't even control the art and the libraries or anything in DC. That wasn't given to them. Mm-mm. That should tell you how powerless in general the Toreador were prior to Stanford.
So Lily is a politically ambitious Toreador, which are not the norm for the most part, but she's a very politically ambitious Toreador that saw a chance of opportunity in DC.
Yes, she did.
Because DC is ripe for, once it was taken from Vitel, get the Camarilla back in, make sure you get in on the ground floor, get your position, get your status, and then build up the clan in the city. And that is her plan.
That's the only reason. Backing Stanford at the very beginning, before he had even removed Vitel yet, was why she got her position. She went in when he had almost no supporters.
Get in at the ground floor.
And said, look, we will do your dirty work to make sure you win. What do you need us to do? And they ended up causing the riots. But that's how they got their
collateral
position.
damage.
That's why you got a primogen that's a Kaitif, primogen of the clanless and unbound. But he was told, frankly, that it's an experiment. And if he fucks up, there won't be a primogen. There probably won't even be a Kaitif.
Right.
Which is another case of why Steve was willing to turn to Sybil.
Yeah.
Because Steve, like any kindred, wants to survive. He's tired of being told that, you're a Kaitif. We'll destroy you anytime we feel like it. Suck it.
Okay, and Spectre Alafet, she made this comment, and I wasn't sure, please correct me, if you were being sarcastic or not, because it's hard to read sarcasm in chat. Does the Coterie have any theories on the cause of the riots yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, we caused it.
They caused it. You'll hear about that if you watch...
Actually, it's all Steve's fault.
Yes, if you listen to episode 0, the first story so far, which is really the idea behind this part 2 is so that people listen to the story so far and in this one, and then they're mostly caught up because it covers what they did to cause the riots. But know that the Coterie is directly responsible for it, and it's a event of such masquerade-breaking magnitude in a lot of ways that were it to come out that the Coterie was behind this and that Stanford put them up to it, the tower would come down with merciless force.
Yes.
We're talking archons at a minimum to punish the transgressors.
Yes.
Because deliberately giving a drug that makes people act like normal kind to get addicted and make them more powerful than kind, but not quite ghouls, but frenzying for this addiction and then taking it away just so they all basically frenzy at once on the July 4th, the 4th of July, when everyone's in the nation's capital, is a bad thing.
It's very bad.
This is not something the Camarilla would support. So it
is always Steve.
It was bad.
Steve is the king of bad ideas.
He is.
Yeah.
So what other questions we got?
Okay, and then we have Vancouver by Night asked, how long was Shanky in the doghouse for the death 2 episodes ago? Actually, he wasn't at all. It was very emotionally hard to play because it hit me as a player because Waylon was one of my favorites. I mean, he was an awesome Toreador. He wasn't the pretentious prick that most male Toreador are. And so it was, I was losing a really good SPC to role play with. But on top of that, Lily was emotionally a bit invested in Waylon, not necessarily in a romantic way, but almost like she saw him as potentially a political protege. The boy had some ambition, and she saw possibly grooming him to potentially take her place as Primogen if she decides to leave the city at any point in the future. And so she could not. She was devastated at the loss.
But it didn't get on me. See, I've made it clear from the beginning, and this is part of my storytelling style. Actions have consequences. Actions of the players have consequences for the players. Actions of the SPCs have consequences for them too. And my SPCs are not omnipotent. They don't know everything. Everyone assumes Stanford did it and did the fire and is behind it. And if he is behind it, from his point of view, Dr. Philo Exeter had been investigating these arsons and knew it was blood sorcery causing them, but had not relayed that information to the prince. The prince did not have that information. Mm-hmm. So from the prince's point of view, he knew arsons were happening, and it was a perfect chance to take someone out and blame it on the arson and blame it on the arsonist. And because he didn't have this information, that I asked Dr. Philo, had he relayed to the prince yet that blood sorcery was involved? And Celador told me no, not yet. He was waiting until he got everything he needed. The prince did not have this vital piece of information. So from my point of view, from the prince's point of view, it was a perfect plan. The problem is, my SPCs operate off the knowledge they know of. He did not know that blood sorcery, so his plan was flawed in many ways. And that tipped things off.
So basically, if he had gotten away with it,
somebody else would have been blamed. But no,
somebody else would have been blamed, and the coterie would have been tasked to go take out this other enemy of Stanford's that he wanted eliminated.
So getting back on the main part of that thing, I didn't get in the doghouse because Verlin understands that everyone's actions have consequences. Yep. Ultimately, Waylon's destruction can be linked back to he embraced without permission.
Yep. And Lily blackmailed.
And Lily blackmailed the prince. Stanford does not forget shit like that. And he saw an opportunity to eliminate basically what Lily used to get one over on him, or what she wanted from it.
Yeah.
To eliminate them in a way that he wouldn't get the blame. He could actually pin the arson on
someone else,
somebody that he wanted them to kill instead. And he could chuckle in his own head about he got them to kill an enemy for him.
And got away with murder.
And got away with murdering the same one she was blackmailing over. It was a perfect plan in his point of view.
Because he tried to kill both. He actually tried to destroy both Wayland and Raphael. Raphael just happened to survive because Wayland saved him.
And he didn't have the information. He was missing something.
Yeah.
So, okay, what else we got?
Okay, hang on. But one thing I will say is he wasn't in the doghouse. The only thing it just didn't quite set right with me, and I brought it up, but it is what it is, because ultimately storyteller decides when his SPCs are going to do something. I felt it was a little rushed considering our timeline in the game and how we haven't really progressed through a lot of time.
Yeah, she said it was too soon after the blackmail in terms of actual not
it just felt too
days.
It just felt too soon, like it was rushed.
And that's something I've realized that in a lot of ways this DC Chronicle is my test chronicle. I haven't played Vampire in 20 years before we started this. I hadn't played any RPGs. I was really rusty. And this has been my way to get the rust off and to figure out what I'm going to do with my next chronicle. And in a lot of ways, I've realized that when you're streaming it, the one thing you don't want to do is have firm dates all the time. You want to be vaguer with time, because we started off this chronicle with exact dates and exact time frames, and everything had an exact how long it would take. The problem with that becomes, well, when you say someone's coming over tomorrow or they got a meeting tomorrow, you have to play that tomorrow. And so we are averaging 1 day a session.
Yeah, it's rough,
or 2 days a session instead of time skips.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that's going to be corrected. When we get to the Chicago game, I will be being a lot more vague. You won't get told they're going to come by and visit tomorrow. You'll get told they'll be by shortly, or in a few days, or they'll get back to you
within the week.
Or they'll get back to you as soon as they can.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when we play the episodes, we don't have to worry about what time it is, and we can have as much time passing between episodes as we need, so that the story on a timeline basis would make sense.
Will flow. Right.
It's something I've learned. There's a lot of little things I've learned knocking the rust off that I'm going to change for Chicago, and that's one of them. That's the big one for me.
Yeah, because I had no issue with what went down. It was just the pacing of it fell off to me as a player, and it was just a commentary I had for him. But he wasn't in the doghouse for it at all. It was good story. It was really good story. Okay, and then of course Vancouver by Night asked who would win in an arm wrestle, you or I. Easy, McStabber. Because please.
See these long arms? I got the leverage anyway.
I got these little short arms with baby hands. It ain't happening.
Yeah, I got the leverage. We already know who's the stronger one in the house, so that's okay. But that's not how we live our marriage anyway. It's all good.
It's all good. Okay.
You were never worried about timelines. You generally don't. When you're playing at tabletop, I didn't. It didn't matter. what the timelines was. But when we're streaming, I try not to change the story too much just because I'm streaming. But at the same time, if you're doing a stream, you have to make sure that it's entertaining, that you're doing something people want to watch. And so if we have a 2-hour episode and in 2 hours, nothing gets done, nothing gets accomplished, nothing happens. It's just everybody, twiddling their thumbs, Lily's running her clubs and Steve's doing sweeps, but nothing happens. Well, nobody's going to want to watch that. You have to keep the pace going and keep things happening. I let the players do the role playing that they want to do, but when I see that their discussions stop or this role playing stops, I move the story along. But having exact dates makes it difficult.
Yeah.
To move things forward sometimes, and we won't do it that way next time. You'll notice Jason Carl doesn't do that. The dates are vague, always are vague, and it works great because then you don't assume, you don't worry about that.
Vancouver by Night asks, if this were a buddy cop movie, who in the coterie would be Riggs and who would be Murtaugh?
Riggs is Steve Perry. That motherfucker crazy.
Murtaugh's Locke.
Yeah.
Murtaugh's Locke.
Yep, she's the one trying to rein everybody in, trying to be. But Steve Perry's motherfucking crazy.
Yeah, he's a clown.
Yeah, Steve is low grade asshole.
No, he's low key smart ass.
Or low key smart. He gets in little jabs that you're like, wait, did you?
Wait a minute,
did
you just do that? Yeah.
Yeah, but he is also, and Dorian will confirm. He knows the action Steve's doing is bad. He knows where it's going to end. He knows it's not going to end well. But from the perspective of Steve Perry, the character, not the player, that's exactly what Steve would do. It makes total sense for Steve to do it. Even if, as the player, he's going, oh shit, this is not good. This is looking bad. But he's playing his character correctly. And that's,
Lily, a Tamshu, Lily would legit deliver the I'm too old for this shit line. Yes, she
Locke
would.
does the...
Okay, and Tamshu asks, how's the studio upgrade coming?
I've gotten all the drywall off the main wall. I've gotten the door off. I was going to knock out the 2x4s that were separating the old room, but Relyn was taking a nap, and I'm pretty sure I would have been in the doghouse if while she's taking a nap, I took the sledgehammer to knock out that wall on the floor under where she was taking a nap.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that
I
would have ended
probably
well.
would have stabbed him.
Yeah, so... but overall, it's coming pretty well. I don't know how long it's going to take me because I work on it in between my job because I work. But, I mean, progress is coming. The hardest part left, honestly, is going to be remudding. The carpet's easy. Knocking the walls out, easy. It's just the remudding stuff that's going to take a little bit.
Okay, are we excited for the upcoming Chicago campaign?
I am.
We are, actually. I mean, we love DC. We
know the city.
We know the city, and we generally love our characters that we play. And the SBCs are very interesting to interact with. But I will say that we are very excited to try out Chicago because it's a larger city. There's more SPCs. There's more plots and more things going on.
I want to give my storyteller side of that one, too. Mm-hmm. One of the problems with DC is DC itself doesn't have many people compared to the city you would think. So you can't have many kindred. You really can't. There's also a lot of, from that's a cool story perspective, a lot of things you can't do in DC. You're talking about the home of the federal government. You can't have no planes, no helicopters, no drones, anything too overtly on the streets, of course. FBI, CIA, DOD, Secret Service, Metro Police, Capitol Police, Park Police, they're all there in your shit. You can't do that.
Even
for a story.
Personal guns are outlawed in DC.
You can't even have a gun, period, in DC. So there's a lot of story you can't tell in DC. You have to have what we're doing now, a very, very, very political game with some supernatural. You can't get around the political part of DC because you can't do it. And Relyn says I obsess about the helicopters, but look, what is more Ventrue than having a meeting as a Ventrue is going to get on his helicopter to go fly somewhere on his on the pad on top of his building? What is more Ventrue than that? I can't do that in DC because you can't have helicopters in DC. None of that shit. We can't do it. So, and as somebody who had to convert DC by night from V1 to V5, it's a constant amount of work to keep what's there and to make it work for the new edition and to be able to take a book that was made for this edition. And yes, I put my own spin on everything and just run it will be a big deal.
Are we going to be the same characters in Chicago?
No. But there is a twist to that part. I will be making lore sheets for each of the DC by Night characters, and most of the guests will have a lore sheet made after them. that the people who play in Chicago have the option of buying some of the lore sheets from the DC by Night characters to tie the DC Chronicle back to or Chicago back to DC.
And
so there'll be a
honestly-
Steve Perry lore sheet, a Lily lore sheet,
Yep.
that reflects the story we've told.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Steve Perry, I've already decided one of them is going to be, well, that's not the best idea. Is going to be one of the titles of it, you know?
Yeah, one of Lily's titles is going to be Get Shit Done, because
Yep.
she says often she gets shit done.
You know? One of them for Lily will be, I got leverage, you know, because of her.
I got leverage.
Yeah. Quartermain has already said one of his he wants to be, I know a guy. That's one quarter. I know a guy, you know, that can get him something.
Maybe keep that in my pocket because, you know, you get a good secret on somebody to use as leverage later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you know.
we're going to make these for it. And when we make them, after I get them all done and the characters make their characters, I probably will post them somewhere that if anyone wants to look at them,
wants to use
they'll be
them?
able to see them,
Yeah.
what we made from the DC Chronicle and the guests.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's going to be some good ones for Dr. Philo.
Yeah.
Ludlow will end up with one because Ludlow started off as my character for the B-Dave Patreon games, but I stopped using him for that and brought him to DC because he shared supposedly a sire with Steve, though this is where we're getting into the Steve don't know. Ooh, that ring looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that rings looks like.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, no, we are actually planning on creating new characters for Chicago and having the DC characters be lore sheets
And make
that we could
appearances
use,
from time to time.
and possibly make SPC appearances from time to time
I'll
as the
cameo.
story dictates. But we also have been tossing around the idea of at some point in the future we may come back to DC
For one shots
for
and
like
random
you
nights,
know
yeah.
mini chronicle type things.
one or two episode series just to touch back
like a
on those
mini
characters.
series, just to touch base, you know, years ahead to see what our
What's been
kindred
going
are
on,
up to.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some good ones for Steve. I'm not going to lie. There's so many bad ones you can do with Steve.
Oh, there is. There's so many.
Yeah, there's just
so many.
so many messed up things you can do with Steve's, which will
Yeah.
be funny. So I mean, any other questions? I mean, I'm
Ask
free to
us
answer
anything. Anything.
about my storytelling style. You know, I've already explained. I'm a firm believer in actions have consequences. As storyteller, I will say it is not my story. DC by Night is not my story. It's the player's story. It's the guest story.
But consequences have actions.
But actions have consequences. My job as storyteller is not to
consequences have actions.
Right. My job as storyteller is not to dictate their story. It's their story. They tell me. I just dictate what the consequences of actions are and what goes on around them to make the city seem alive. And I'll admit, I do sometimes prearrange storylines with the players because it's their characters. The whole Steve thing with Sybil. That started because I said, hey, Steve, would Steve sell out to Sybil if she offered him power? And he's like, yeah. I said, do you want to do that storyline? He's like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And that's what we worked with. And just like with his sire, finding out about his sire, I came to Steve one time and I said, Urian, what if Granger's not your sire? What if you're actually a failed Lasombra? And he's like, oh, yeah, we could do a good story with that one. And I was like, okay, well, then we're going to do a story for that. And that's what we did.
Okay, so we have Tobias.
SPC, that is what I use for, same as NPC. Storyteller, player
Borealis,
character.
yep.
Instead of NPC.
Instead of NPC, it's storyteller player character.
Yeah, it's my storyteller character.
Tobias asks, as a storyteller, Shanky, are you going to do anything super different with the Chicago campaign that is different from DC's campaign?
Okay, I've already talked about the timing.
timing,
There'll
yeah.
be time difference. I'll be giving my characters less experience. Right now, they get 3 XP an episode. And in the 20, we're going to start on episode 24 this weekend, plus all the ones that weren't streamed. As a whole, they've broke 200 total experience gained.
Yeah. We've
and I
beefed up
feel-
way too fast for neonates.
That's why I'm wanting the indefinite time. If you look at the actual timeline and dates, they've gotten too powerful too quick anyway. So I'm going to cut the experience back. We have talked about all the players being ghouls prior to being a kindred, where they're all ghouls from somebody else in Chicago that got embraced as a kindred to give them a real tie to Chicago. We're still working the details on that. Let's see. There's a couple other things I've talked about being. I'm going to be a little less forgiving on some of the roles.
Yeah, we're really leaning hard towards the ghoul start, where we start off as ghouls and we're either embraced by the kindred that we are ghouled to or by possibly an enemy of that kindred.
I'm going. There's going to be a different standard for the game. I'm going to say that now. There'll be different requirements for camera quality, mic quality, distractions, table talk. We're not going full performance play. We are still an actual play. We will always be an actual play. But there's a certain amount of seriousness that we'll have our gallows humor and our jokes, but there's a certain amount of seriousness I would like to see at my table because I think the story is better when we have more serious stuff with the humor to break it, because you've got to have the humor, but not where it's the serious is the exception and the humor is the rule. I want serious the rule, humor's the exception to break it.
Okay, so this question is for me.
Okay.
Spectre Elephant asks, what's Lily's plan to achieve Vitel's demand? Okay, so
that's on her.
Yep, last session.
But that will probably, before you go, that's probably going to be one of the first of our vignettes.
Yes, that will be the first of our vignettes. We actually have to decide when we're going to record that, because that's legit just going to be Shanky and I doing a quick playthrough, probably about an hour and a half.
Let me go on the vignettes. It's basically, these are going to be side stories that we do probably on Wednesdays that aren't required for watching the stream, because whatever happens in them will get summarized by the people involved in it. But it's mainly there because there's certain scenes I've come to realize streaming that, say, when Lily goes to see the Madame, you're talking about an hour of game, half of our game
where
being
the only Lily
player
scene.
Right, the only player playing will be her. I'm wanting to break those into things that can be summarized so that we have less of those on the table, so that more of the whole coterie can play, rather than just one person, two people. So that's going to be that. And now I'll let her answer.
And basically doing that will allow us to advance time a little better, so that we're not taking up so much of each session working on these individual projects or individual scenes. So basically, with the plan for Vitel's demand, when Lily met Vitel, as Shanky had said in the alley last episode, he basically promised her the intel she needs to solve the mystery of the fire at Black Magic and what happened to Wayland. He required a ring from the Madam. The Madam is a collector of unique objects. She has originals of various rare items, including occult books, and works of art, jewels.
Many items thought lost during World War II. She has them.
She has them. The items thought lost forever, she has.
The Hope Diamond.
The Hope Diamond.
She got it when, during the riots, Stephen Norton, a Malkavian, finally achieved his goal of stealing the Hope Diamond when everything was disrupted because of riots everywhere in D.C. He stole it. And so she has it now.
She has all these unique items that are priceless, basically, in her penthouse. And Lily has paid attention every time she's gone in to see the Madam to see what changes, because obviously people are trading things. So basically Lily is going to work a trade, because ultimately she needs to know what happened. She will be going, we talked about it after the game at the table, and Urine, he wanted to possibly play in that vignette because he wanted to go see the Madam as well. However, I have decided that due to her experience with what Quartermain had to trade for the book that he got from her, she knows it's going to be something incredibly personal she has to give up. And she doesn't want to share that with anyone. So she's going to go do it on her own.
That's pretty funny, Yusuf. Vitel's a bastard. I don't use him to do violence in mine, because his level of manipulation. His machinations and manipulations are epic. Okay, Lily could learn so much from that guy if he wasn't a giant monster. Yeah, to quote The Godfather, though, the offer he made Lily was an offer she couldn't refuse. No, and as a player, as I was analyzing that scene when we did the play of it on Sunday, I'm like, I bet he actually stashed either Wayland's remains or Wayland if he's torpid. I bet he stashed him in the Oblivion or whatever it's called. And I'm like, I bet he stashed him so he can't be found. And I said, and
if Lily had tried to refuse outright to do the task that Vitale did, if she decided, oh, that information isn't worth it to me, I'm not going to do it, he would have thrown that at her to make her do it.
One way or another.
So one way or the other, she was going to do it, or she was going to die that night. So yeah, and it's definitely, you know, so she's going to do it. She's going to go basically the next day because she already basically we're going to deal with, you know,
you'll find out about that.
Yeah, she's going to basically, or if it's not the next day, the soonest, the meeting's arranged.
You'll find out about that in
that's
the next
coming
episode.
up. I'm sorry, spoilers. But yeah, so she arranged. The meeting was arranged, and she's going to meet with the madam.
Thanks for joining our ranks of our ghouls.
Yeah, thank you so much, Game Ryan One.
The nice thing about these vignettes is I can record them whenever we record them.
Whenever we have the time.
And then play them at the right order, because as everyone knows, our vampire stream is recorded. We pre-record all of ours so that we can interact with our viewers. That's the way we do it. We love to be able to interact during the episode live while it's playing, because we play on Saturday, every other Saturday. We record 2 episodes and then stream every Sunday. And then we can talk with everybody and answer questions and give our own opinions.
Yeah.
And frankly, as storyteller, I find it amazing to be able to watch the stream with the viewers, because when I'm running a game as storyteller, I'm in storyteller mode. I'm focused on the story, on, you know, being ready and going and working with the players, which makes me miss a lot of things. So when I watch it with the viewers, I get to see the things I missed and pick up on the little cues that I didn't see otherwise, which makes me a better storyteller.
As a player, it allows me to more thoroughly analyze the scene, because I go very method with Lily. I'm very method with her. I go full into her character when I'm playing her. So I can be very emotionally invested in a scene, and I will miss certain keywords. I'll miss certain tells. I'll miss certain things because I'm so emotionally focused on something. So basically having it recorded and then streamed, you know, on Sundays, and where I can sit and watch it with the viewers and discuss it with viewers, I'm like, oh crap, I missed that. Let me make a note.
And I'm highly ADHD. Anyone who's watched my interview I did with Get Into Gaming, or the interview I did with Vancouver by Night,
thank you.
Will understand I am highly ADHD. If I live stream the vampire game, I cannot stop myself from interacting with chat or looking at the camera and talking to the viewers about shit I shouldn't be talking to them about, and distracting from the table game and the players at the table. And as storyteller, it's not right for me to do that, because I'm incapable of resisting it and not doing it.
Tobias says he's living in a basement for half a year to be a better Nosferatu.
That's
method.
There are a lot of players or storytellers who can do both. I'm not one of them. If I can react to chat, I will, to the distraction and detriment of the game. It's a better game overall if you don't let me do it. And the only way to stop me from doing it, because I am the guy who runs the tech, is to pre-record. Yeah. It's the only way. And if you watch our beginning streams, the ones early in when we started streaming,
the first
when we were live, you'll
yeah.
see me do it a lot.
Yeah.
And looking back, I cringe at myself because I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I can't stop because of my ADHD.
Right.
We've eliminated it by pre-recording. Now it's a lot better.
It's a lot better.
You know?
But yeah, and also one of the nice things about being a player and watching the stream as a recording with the viewers is I'll sometimes analyze how I played a scene, and I'll look at it and be like, okay, that was good, but maybe I could have done this instead. And it helps me learn how to portray my character a little better, because at times, you know, there are things that I might have done that I'm like, no, my character really would have thought that through a little differently. And next time a situation like that pops up, I'll go this route instead. So.
And the other thing, it goes back to what Tobias asked, changes that'll be different for the Chicago game. One of the requirements for all the Chicago players is if you are in an episode, because I actually plan to have 8 to 10 people total for our Chicago Chronicle. No more guest players. Instead of guest players, we're going to have 8 to 10 people as the cast. And the ones available will play anywhere from 4 to 5 people. 5 is the cap. I'll go anywhere, anything above 2 players I'll run, and up to 5 is the cap for players. Whatever of the 8 to 10 cast members available will play. But one of the requirements is you have to make a big effort to be in chat when if you're in the episode airing, because that is one of the things I feel makes our channel unique, is how we interact with the viewers. Every week you see myself, Relin, and Urian in the chat. Celador, when it's his episode, he's always there.
Our guests are in the
talk,
chat when there's streams.
Yeah, and being able to talk with the people is part of it. So all the people who are on the stream for that week are expected to be in chat. Now, I understand real life, you get emergencies, shit pops up. That I can understand.
But when you're consistently missing the streams.
But I will want you to make an effort if you're in the episode to be there.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes us unique. Is that interaction and that personal feeling you get from the players to where you're not just watching them, but we'll talk with you, talk about the episode, talk about why we felt, how we felt certain things happened and why we felt about it. That's part of our community now where we love that outreach. So that's part of my thing. That's a boatload. Where do I sign? We've got to sign up.
But we're not really accepting more guests at this time.
We've got enough new guests signed up for this Chronicle. But when we go to the Chicago, I will make posts about it, about almost like a casting call in a lot of ways. Because when I say there'll be standards for audio and video, there will. Because we expect a certain level of quality. We're an amateur studio, I admit it. We're not trying to make money off this. But I'm OCD, and I try to put out the best show we can, the best thing for viewers.
If you don't already, you can follow us on Twitter, and I posted up the links in chat. Amrath is Shanky, and Relindare is me. I am pretty much the channel hype woman, but follow us both on Twitter, because as we get closer to doing a Chicago Chronicle, both of us will be posting about it.
And so if you really want to be a player in it, and you have good, you have a decent webcam. I mean, a Logitech C930, the standard that almost everybody uses, that's what we're using tonight.
Yeah.
That's not what I use when I'm in Storyteller. I have a mirrorless for mine, only because I like to show off my screen.
Yeah.
And because I like to show off my screen, I need something with a wider angle.
Yep.
And my mirrorless Sony lets me get the whole screen on. I can get the whole Dogmite screen right there in plain view. Everyone can see it. Because, as I've mentioned to Relin, a pet peeve of mine is how many people I see with Dogmite screens. But you can only see the top of it. The thing is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Why would you have something that gorgeous in front of you, but only show a sliver of the top? Jesus Christ, they're gorgeous screens. You've got to show them. So that's my own vanity. I admit it.
Yeah.
But we're going to there'll be tech standards, and I want like I said, I want the series played to be the focus with the humor as the exceptions to the rules, to where we do have our humor and it carries on, but not to the detriment of the story being told.
Or derailment
of the story being told. And not to, honestly, not disrupting a scene that another player is having, a serious scene that some of the players are having. Sometimes the humor at those points can ruin the scene for the player that was doing it. And it's not fair to the player that was having a serious scene with good role playing. It's really not good to do that, because it's just rude to the player who was
trying to do their scene.
And I've been guilty of it myself in the past. And even I have to be better about it, because it's not fair to the players. If they're having a serious scene, let them finish their scene.
Yes, in-character humor is totally allowed. Color commentary, no bueno.
That's for the breaks?
That's for the breaks.
And intro and outro.
And intro and outro.
Yep.
Because it's too disruptive. It's honestly too disruptive. I mean, we're not professional actors, and we're not putting on a true, that type of level of performance show, but it's definitely, we want to be able to not get disrupted from our train of thought when we're trying to role play out a scene. And that's been the problem that especially we had in the beginning, where there was a lot
all
more,
of us were doing it in the beginning.
A lot more table talk. People were getting disrupted from their scenes. And so that's not okay.
Yeah, and we're not wanting to do that. Like I said, Chicago has been to figure out what I want and what I don't, what we want. And hopefully what the players want. Any player that doesn't want to play that way, I understand. Then they can just play a different game.
It's a game, but we have expectations.
Right. It is a game, but yeah, I love playing. And even if I didn't stream, my next Chronicle would have that same rule, because it's not fair to the other players. It's not fair to the ones who are in a deep scene, a very emotional and a very serious, or a heartbreaking scene like the Wayland, which, good enough, we had no problems with it during that episode.
No, we didn't.
Because everyone was so stunned into silence.
The whole
group table was quiet.
Yeah. It was amazing.
But I want to have scenes like that can happen. And yes, if it's in character, in universe, or if it's at break, Or once in a while, there's, like when Vitale showed up and everybody's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean that's expected.
But not the
reactionary is okay because that's being human and it happens.
And
but,
I'm guilty too. I admit it.
But honestly, if you're one of those players that goes overboard with it, you're just not a good fit for us because we just don't want that kind of disruption.
Yeah, and I'm trying to.
I'm sure you are, Tobias, but it will be some time. There's still quite a lot of it to dig into.
The party keeps screwing up and they all get murdered, it'll be sooner than we thought.
Yeah, well, Lily now has Vitale that she can call on.
As storyteller, as you can tell, as storyteller by me getting Wailing killed and doing what I did with that emotional scene. I don't pull punches as storyteller. I don't make the story easier. Actions have consequences, and if the actions involve you getting dusted, and the SPC, it makes sense in a logical sense that the SPC would dust you for something. You will be dusted. If you start a fight with Ark, there is only one end result from starting a fight with Ark.
You are dusted.
If you start a fight with Victoria, there is only one end result. That is what's going to happen. If Lily joked about, something, as an example, here's a good example. If Lily sends the head of somebody, of one of the prince's ghouls, to the prince in a box, she's going to get dusted. That's how that works. I mean,
but it would be epic.
It would be epic. It's great, but
this is what I do.
That's how it works.
This is what I do in between games. I think of the most outlandish, walking away from the explosion type role play I want to do with my character, and then I'm like, yeah, that would totally get her dusted, and then I roll it back and come to something a little more conservative.
Had R'lyn not offered Prince Stanford to be his spy on the Primogen Council, she would not have left his throne room. Her character would have died that episode. He would have murdered her at a hand because, okay, you're going to blackmail me. Great. It's an inconvenience letting Felix find out. But I can live through it. You're not going to.
You're not going to.
But because he offered her something that would improve his, help him secure his princedom and undermine the Primogen Council, he agreed to it. Had she not offered that, she would have died that episode.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Stanford would have murdered her because that's what Stanford would do. My wife or not, I will not.
Had Lily flat out refused Vitale, she would have died last episode.
Yeah.
I was literally internally freaking the fuck out when he pulled out Vitale in the alley. I'm like, fucking shit, this is how Lily ends.
Yeah, I'd have killed Vitale would not have taken no for an answer. He would have murdered her. Period. There would have been no other end to that. He would have murdered her. That's how it is.
I was like, okay, Lily's smart. She's been around Methuselahs before. Stay polite. Yep. Agree to whatever they want.
You're right.
And get the fuck out.
Character death is a valid consequence. I don't like storytellers or dungeon masters or game masters that
pull punches
or that deliberately do things to murder his players. That's not fair to the players. It's not fair to your story. But at the same time, I don't like them that pull punches and give them an out when there shouldn't have been, or let them survive something that there's no survival, or let them get away with something that the characters in the game would not have let them get away with. It's not right. I don't believe in that, and that's not how I run my game. So if they do something that the SPCs or the NPCs, whatever, the non-players in the game would kill them for, they're going to die. They need to make sure of that. That's how it works.
Yeah, Yusuf says, gave my Venture PC player 2-minute introduction to Vitale, and the player's voice went up 3 octaves and hands shook. Fun character. Yes, I mean, legit, Vitale is pretty much a walking god. And
Yusuf, I wish
you don't
watch episode
fucking
0.
piss him off.
Watch episode 0. I wrote a whole speech when he was leaving DC. I actually wrote a speech for Vitale. One of the only times, for those that have seen my interviews, you'll know, I improvise 90%, I think, of what's on what we play, because I can't tell what my characters or the players are going to do. Almost the entire sessions are improvised with just some bare groundwork done before. But I wrote an entire speech for Vitale about him leaving, and he went and talked about, he meant it when he said his streets will not run with blood, and that it's fitting that he'd betrayed Marissa and now he's betrayed as well. And my favorite line, which I still love, is you will not be my Brutus, and I will not be your Caesar. And then he left and just left him.
Flounced out with Nathan.
It took Nathan, who was one of the big betrayers, the mastermind behind it all, and left. Because that was what I saw him doing. I took what he put in Beckett's about not wanting his street to run in blood. I took it at face value and said he did mean that. He was trying to break free and found out he can't. So he left.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other good questions? I mean, this is a good discussion. There's
Yeah,
a lot
this
of
is a fantastic
little behind the
discussion.
scenes thing.
Anything else y'all want to talk about?
He actually, when he left, he gave his full Marcus Aurelius Sejanus. He gave his full name, all 3 of his Roman names. He said as he was leaving, to show that he meant
It
what he
wasn't
said.
Marcus Aurelius.
No, it was Marcus Sejanus
Sejon-
Vital. It's Marcus Sejanus. I gave the full
His full
Roman
actual lore name.
name. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd have to grab my other notebook that has it
Yeah.
written in it. I can't reach it. It's over behind Berlin, but I'll get it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in that one. I mean, it was
Yeah,
a
he gave
great
his
exit.
full name, but when Lily met him in the alley, she addressed him as Lord Vital because that was how he was introduced to her when she first arrived in the city.
He's
And
anarch.
and that's where Lucius Aeolus
Yep.
Sejanus. Yep.
That's how I did. That's
Yep.
how he left.
Yep.
And he did it with his full name.
Yep. But Lily addressed him as Lord Vital because that's what she was introduced to him as.
I mean,
Oh, thank you, Unconscious
hey,
Celestial.
Cor. That's Sabrina. We talked about her.
Yeah,
That's
she
who plays
plays
Sabrina.
Sabrina.
She's got more of her story coming, but her revelation last episode about Esmeralda and Dorian fighting because Esmeralda has a child that doesn't recognize her is going to play a key role in episode 24 this weekend. It's a big part of the episode. A big revelation comes from it. So I think you guys should watch that one because that one's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
This is an episode I will honestly say as storyteller, I
It's
didn't
one of
have
his
much
favorites.
to do. No, I didn't have much to do. Storyteller
The players
largely stayed uninvolved.
The players ran that shit.
Yeah,
This
they
coming
ran that
Sunday,
shit.
we ran that shit.
Yeah, I didn't have much to do.
It's really going to be good. I'm actually going to be posting up a promo later
Mm-hmm.
tonight for Sunday's episode on Twitter.
It was a good one, and I liked it.
Oh,
and it was
thank you
crazy.
so much, Yusuf. We appreciate it. Our story goes down these darker paths, it's getting more serious. It's getting more high stakes and more tension involved. So it's becoming a really good story. It's a dark, intrigue-filled horror game.
But as I've been saying the whole time, ever since Chapter 2 started, which is with the riots, if you think this story has a happy ending, you haven't been watching. There is no happy ending to this chronicle. Based on the actions of these players, look at Steve Perry. Steve Perry has no happy ending.
No.
Lily has no happy ending. Her ambition alone is going to cost her in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Quartermain cannot stay the Boy Scout he always wants to be. Locke caught between duty and the coterie and trying to find
Duty
a family,
and
all
loyalty.
that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I loved Amos. Amos was one of my
It was his favorite.
favorite characters. It really was. As a kindred, as a storyteller, I love the idea of a kindred who didn't care about the kindred politics. All he cared about was staring at the kind and knowing what the kind were doing. It was an awesome idea to change him slightly for that. But the actions have consequences, and events were set in motion, and the dice in a lot of ways determined who was at risk that night. And I've told the players this, and I guess now you guys will know, what happens in the story. As I said, it's their story. I throw threads out all the time about things going on. They follow what they want to follow. What they don't want to follow, I leave the threads to the wayside because I'm just seeing what they want to follow or laying stuff for later. The Amos thing, it was because of where they choose to win. Who was in danger that night, what kindred could die that night, was determined by where they went and who they went to check on of the touchstones. Whichever touchstone they went to check on had a kindred associated with it. And whoever that was in danger of dying. And in this case, the dice did not favor Amos. You'll see though, all of them are about where they choose to go. We've had entire storylines that just died.
Yeah, that we just ignored.
They ignored them. And if they ignored the threads I put out there, fuck it. I let them, that's fine.
Those stories just die.
They just died.
They die a quiet death in the corner.
And if I need them, later, the threads were still there. It's not like they disappeared. It's just they choose not to do it. But if I have to, it can always be brought back up later and say, you remember that? Well, that's an extension. And that's the way it works.
The threads may fall by the wayside, but they're still laying in wait to snare us later. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the beauty of doing it.
But definitely.
Yeah, 80% of my notes never get used.
Tobias says he's upset. Art straightened up. Unconscious Celestial says, I'm curious to see where it goes, though. And then let's see. And then Tobias responded, totally, he's going to be one cold killing machine. He's
He
going to
is.
be one cold killing machine with an innate sense of justice that Lily is totally going to manipulate.
I have taken,
I'm just saying.
Yusuf, you know who Art Morgan is. Yusuf, if you've read DC by Night, you know who Art Morgan is. I took that base character, because of all the characters, none of them are completely like canon, because I put my own spin on all of them and turn the story in a couple ways. One of the reasons I do it is to make it my style. And the second reason is, if any players in my game try to meta that shit and read what was in the book, it's going to bite them in the ass, because I changed just enough to make the meta a bad idea to do. In Art's case, I decided that his hippiedom, the way he acts, he decided after all the killing he had seen, because he is a very old gangrel, that he couldn't deal with it anymore, that he didn't want to become like he saw all the other elders, cold, heartless, a killer, a monster. So he made an arrangement with Dorian to put a fake personality on top of, to lock parts of his own self away in his head, so that he could be this hippie and be one who's humane and not be the killer and not be what his age demanded. But at the same time, when I did that, I knew that there would be points in the story where that could break. And if it broke, he would go back to being just like Xavier, his younger brother, the cold, heartless, almost 1,600-year-old gangrel that has seen, death and murder and destruction, and has become as cold and hardened as Xavier was, who literally took the gangrel out of the Camarilla and murdered Karsh, the warlord, the gangrel warlord of the Camarilla, because he felt that was what needed to be done. And that's how I've taken Art. That whole part where it separates out. So now that he's become what he's meant to be, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Also, Vancouver by Night commented that we need to play that Wraith game, and I've been wanting to play that Wraith
I haven't
game.
read the
I'm
book
waiting
yet.
on Shanky to read the rules again.
I read it over 20 years ago when I got it. I got it when it first came out. I read it.
Because I want to play a ghost.
I wasn't, as a storyteller, I wasn't mature enough or skilled enough, I felt, to run a Wraith game. I didn't have good enough players to run a Wraith game, so I didn't. Never tried it. I'm older now, a little more mature, a little more serious in how I approach things. And I will say I'm a better storyteller now than I've ever been. I'm willing to read the rules again to give it another evaluation to see if I could run it. If I don't feel I can run it, I won't run it. If I do not feel I can do a good story or do it justice, I will not do it. It's my own personal pride. It's my own standards. I hold myself to a higher standard than I hold anyone else. If I can't do it correctly, I won't do it. But if I can, I will set up at least a few one-shots or a short-term game with it just to do it. If I can.
And another thing is we have the logistical issue of, okay, so if we did it, when would we play it? When would we stream it? Because the Vampire is our predominant game.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes up, when we film for about 6 to 8 hours on a Saturday, every other Saturday.
And then I spend, I think the longest was 16 hours cleaning up audio.
Yeah.
That was the longest of audio
Yeah.
cleanup. When we first switched to headsets, I had a 16-hour marathon of audio cleanup to fix the audio for the stream, which sucked. But I normally spend on average about 4 to 5 hours an episode cleaning up audio to make it, it's pre-recorded. I might as well clean the audio. I don't edit the footage. I just clean the audio. If I spend that too much time on that one and we do a Wraith, we've got to figure out how to schedule it.
Yeah.
So
the
it's a whole
scheduling is
thing.
an issue. And both of us work full-time plus jobs.
Yeah, we're both.
So
we're both salary.
We're both salary exempt, and so we're expected to put in overtime for no pay.
For example, tonight, prior to going live, I was patching servers and had people calling me from deputy program managers calling me to get status and stuff. And that's what I was doing right before going live tonight. So,
yeah.
This is what my job is.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my job has not stopped my streaming yet.
No.
But it is what it is.
Neither is mine. So.
But finding time to do it. And then we get into the other problem we have. When would we do it?
When would we do it?
Sunday, we do Vampire. Watch Long Beach by Night.
Yeah.
We watch Macabre Derek, though I don't get to watch as much as I'd like to.
I don't get to watch as much as I like to.
Mainly because after watching Long Beach and running my stream, we have to get
eat
dinner. And then after dinner, I am just so emotionally drained from the weekend that it's rough.
Yeah.
But I try to watch as much as I can and pop in with his chats because I love Macabre Derek's is
And
different.
then every other Saturday we spend all day
Right.
filming, and then the other Saturdays is when we actually do stuff like family stuff.
Right. And
So it's
Macabre
like,
Derek
you
plays a
know.
different style game than mine, a totally different style game. But I like watching it because I've picked up tricks from him, and I love talking with him because he
He's
he has a
fantastic.
unique perspective on storytelling and on the lore that helps me. So I love talking with him. But so that kills Sunday.
And he and I see eye to eye on Toreadors. They
Right.
are the most frightening clan in Vampire the
So
Masquerade.
that kills Sunday. Monday, we have Near Dark does their Vampire Monday. I'm not going to lie, I don't want to step on that toes. I don't want to try to compete with Near Dark because they're a great stream.
They're a great stream.
A great performance play. I don't want to stream at the same time they do. That's just,
Yeah.
I know the Near Dark people. I watch their stream quite a bit, as often as I can at least. But I don't want to, basically, I don't want to try to work that same time zone as them. It's not right.
And as is
Tuesday, Tamshu. I'm watching Chronicles of Darkness.
We're watching Chronicles
I'm not
of
going to
Darkness.
stream the same night that's on. Hell no.
Yeah.
I like to watch it. Wednesday is when we're streaming.
Yeah.
Thursday, there's we normally
forget.
watch Gehenna Gaming.
Sometimes.
Some depending on what they're doing.
Sometimes, yeah, depending on
Thursday
what
is a
they're doing.
maybe, but then we're streaming
Empathy
2 nights
6
in a row.
dots.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Friday, LA by night. Jesus Christ, I'm not missing LA by night. So finding another time to stream is difficult.
Okay, other than Mr. Carl and Mr. B. Dave, who do you like as storytellers? Pinoy Boy.
Pinoy Boy, I love his voices,
At
his
Near
accents. At Near Dark, Pinoy Boy is amazing at conveying his characters and making them all feel unique and making you feel the emotion of his characters.
Yeah.
I love Macabre Derek for his ability to take and tell a dark story.
Oh my God, he
and focus.
sucker punches his players in the fields
Yeah.
all the time.
the way
I'm
he
like,
does it-
damn, that's exhausting.
The players are driving the narrative, but he manages to just get them
Get that
screws
twist
in there.
in
and make
there.
it. So I love that. Tamshu, I love his Chronicles of Darkness. I love the pacing of Tamshu.
Yeah, his pacing is top notch.
He does, gets you in the feels and it's great, but his measured voice, something I'm not very good with, is he measures the voice out and does it perfectly to build the correct tension in the viewers and the players, and just at the right. I love Tamshu for that. His stories are great for that. Vancouver by Night, I love the players in yours right now more than I haven't seen enough of your storytelling yet to get my full feel. I love the new players and how you have new players that do anything. But I'm not going to lie, Vancouver by Night is amazing for the off-show stuff. Twitch, the guy that I put at the intro with the old radio broadcast, that's Vancouver by Night's idea.
Yeah.
All his idea. He came up with this shared thing.
He's wanting to do basically a share of all the smaller streams of vampires
To link 'em together. Share 'em.
Cross promotion of streams. So yeah, that's
and that's
awesome.
all his behind the scenes. I mean, it's a great idea. I wish I'd thought of it. Because that was his idea with his Ezekiel, and he did the first one with Ezekiel. I love that
Yeah,
idea.
because
It was awesome.
we started out in the
You know?
beginning, doing shout outs and posting links to other streams and stuff.
We've
but
done that from the start.
We've done that from the start, but he basically took it up a notch, and it's like, okay, this is freaking awesome. This
Yeah.
is more content. This is
I
great.
prefer Camarilla. Not gonna lie, I prefer Camarilla game. I have never run a Sabbat game. I will not run a Sabbat game. I don't enjoy running that kind of game. It wouldn't be fair to my players to try to run a game I won't run.
Yeah, and as far as Anarch, I personally won't play an Anarch game
Yeah,
because I feel like they are Camarilla light. I'm sorry.
I can run an Anarch game. I still prefer Camarilla overall. That's my thing. I hope to see more Vancouver by Night. I hope to see more Vancouver by Night to get a better feel of his style. I just haven't seen enough episodes yet. I did like the ones I've been able to watch because his streaming time lines up with Saturday a lot of times. Which
Yeah,
is when
unfortunately,
we're recording, so I can't.
We're usually busy.
And he's
so.
not an every week stream, so it's hard to
Right.
catch the streams. But the ones I've watched, I've enjoyed, especially liked how he dealt with the new players, because it was new players to the game who didn't have experience, and I liked that. So that was, I just got to catch more of it. Yeah, Jason Carl's fucking hands down amazing.
Oh, he's the epitome of storytelling.
I like Matthias Games, who did Sounds of Silence. Mathis does Sounds of Silence with Roll For It. True story, and I've said this before. Jason Carl's doing LA by Night gave me the idea to stream.
Yeah.
Roll For It and their Sounds of Silence Chronicle, their first season,
Yeah.
is what convinced me to do a stream. It's what made this stream a reality.
Yeah.
Seeing them doing it and watching him and going, I could do that. I would like to do that. That looks fun. That looks like something I'd enjoy doing. That is why I stream.
He
because of
started
that show.
showing me the Chicago by Night Sounds of Silence. Was it Sounds of Silence? Yeah, because I know it's something now. It's called something else.
It's
for
still the
this
same
season.
thing. They just got a different name with
It's
it.
just a different name, but it's still the role
It's
for
still
guys
this, and
doing
it still Sounds of Silence. It's just their second chapter.
Yeah, but basically he showed me that after he introduced me to LA by Night, because he introduced me to that in like January of last year, and I saw the first episode of LA by Night, and I looked at him, I'm like, I want to play this game. And then he started showing me the Chicago, and we basically were binge watching Chicago every night before bed. And I was like, holy shit, I want to play this game.
Yeah, but it was theirs. It was their stream that convinced me. Watching Matthias do it, especially in the very beginning, if you watch the first season of that, he didn't know the rules well because he had just got his book, and he stumbled through it, and he got better and better and better. And Bubbernut is amazing.
Yeah.
Little Red Dot is amazing. All the players are amazing.
All the players. Miss Magitech, I mean, she's a great Toreador, and she actually inspired Lily in some ways.
And that got me to want to do it. I watched him do it, and I said, he stumbles in the beginning. He gets better and better once he learned the rules. I can do that. And that's why we stream. That channel, LA by Night and Sounds of Silence, and with Roll For It, is why we're a stream right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah,
and it only took us, we didn't start off streaming, honestly, because one of our players was just adamant he didn't want to stream.
And you guess who it is? It's the guy who
sits in the dark.
Camera sets in the dark all the time. Urian was hesitant a little bit, but as soon as the rest of us said do it, he's fine with it.
He goes with the flow.
And now, as he said, that ship sailed.
That ship has sailed, and he's now doing it.
And he loves doing it.
Yeah.
Urian is a convert. He's been having so much fun with this ship.
But yeah, so so that just took us a while to get
Tobias.
to.
Or Vancouver. Good night, Vancouver. Have a good one.
Good night, Vancouver. But yeah, so but once we start up Chicago, it's going to be basically as DC has been going a bit in chapter 2 since the riots. It's going to be more like that. It's going to be a darker game. It's going to be more intense.
Relena said she doesn't want to play a political game, and I can understand that. The politics of Chicago is going to be rough anyway because everyone there is entrenched.
Everyone there is entrenched and old. So yeah, no, I'm not going to be some up and comer trying to.
Kelwink normally tunes into our board game night, which was Wednesday.
Oh, awesome, Kelwink!
But Kelwink is here. As you can see, we switched from board games, which isn't our big draw, to do more vampire stuff because that's our draw.
Considering we have over double the viewers tonight
a lot
for
more,
this.
Actually more than this. Our viewers and the fans of the show have actually asked us to add more content. So we are. We love streaming. We're doing it for fun, not to make money. But we listen to our fans and they want more vampire. We love vampire. We'll give you more vampire. Yeah. And I'm glad that it inspired your group to dust off your D10s because this is a resurgence of vampire. It's a
renaissance.
Right. I started playing in 93. I played 93 to 99. I missed when it died, but it died. All that was left was the diehards and the ones who just refused to let go. Mm-hmm. V5 brought it back. And to be honest, shows like Critical Role brought streaming to the forefront of these kinds of
tabletop games.
Of tabletop. Mm-hmm. And Critical Role brought a lot of people into just tabletop in general, and Vampire got some of that too. And this is the time to do it. I'm glad that our stream and the other streams out there are encouraging people to play because that's why we shout out so many other streams.
Right. We want you to see different styles of play.
Yeah, and it helps the game as a whole.
Yeah.
It helps the community. It brings more to Vampire. All these other streams, if you don't like ours, find one you like. Watch them.
Yeah.
It brings more people to it. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tobias. He says he loves that we're doing more VTM content.
Yeah, we're trying. The vignettes are going to be interesting. I've already got a number of the...
Because we still have to do the Ludlow story.
Yeah,
you got to hear the story.
Everyone wants to hear the full story of Ludlow, Dominator of Lupine.
And that needs to be a Ludlow and Lily scene. Yep. It does. It needs to be a perspective of Ludlow, then of Lily, and then the two of them discussing.
And Celador has requested... Funny enough, Celador has requested an all-guest vignette.
An all-guest vignette.
None of the players, all the guests, all the people who are guests that want to do conspiracy-minded to get together for a conspiracy-minded guest vignette where they all get together to talk about what they plan to do in D.C., which is also cool. The RP. Well, thank you, Tamshu.
Thank you, Tamshu. He says, I love the style of the McStabber table. The RP is top-notch, and I love the heart and mind behind each SPC. They have a real feel.
I try to make them all feel real.
It's a living world.
their character type.
It's
I try.
It's a living world, and he represents his SPCs as real kindred with their own motivations and their own responses. And
I wish I could do accents better. I wish I could do voices better. I can't. I'm no Pinoy boy. I wish I was. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm jealous of his ability to do voices and convey his emotion with his voices and to convey like he does his characters. I wish. I can't do that. All I can do is make my characters seem alive by their mannerisms, their phrasing they use, and how they act. And that's what I do. I do with what I can. But yeah.
And it's still fantastic because when I am playing with Shanky as him portraying different SPCs and stuff. I mean, one time he did a Primogen council meeting. He was running like 3 different NPCs at the same time.
Which reminds me, we're going to need a Primogen councils meeting coming up. And it's a pain in the ass to be all the Primogen.
It was a lot of work for him.
If anyone would like to be in a guest or a vignette, a one-time vignette as the Primogen for this Primogen council meeting, get with me. We may be able to arrange that.
I do have one request that nobody but him plays Granger.
I will be Granger.
Because he plays Granger so well.
But we'll need a Felix Leroux.
We need a an old world French Ventrue.
Mm-hmm. And Cone Rose.
And Cone Rose, a cocky pretty boy Tremere.
Yep. We need those 2 spots. If someone wants to do it, talk with me. We can see about arranging it because I can give you all the info about what they know before it. But
we really need.
I'd like to see if we could do it because running that many Primogen was difficult.
That was hard for him. I mean, he basically had whiplash at the end of that session. It was rough. But it was so good because even though he was one storyteller playing 3 different characters, each character felt real and felt unique.
I'm not going to lie to you, Amshu. I actually thought of asking you if you wanted to be Felix for that for a one-time appearance. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, putting it out there because you wouldn't actually have to be Felix for that one. Because for that one, you could be a different Ventrue because Felix is not going to show up to that meeting.
Oh, that's some shit.
He's sending his representative.
He's
holed up. Because he's holed up. So you could literally be any Ventrue you wanted and just have to have the info that I'm giving you about what you know about his position on these matters and what he knows of what's going on. But Felix isn't coming out right now. He's hiding out. So if you are interested, we could talk. I'm just saying. Bomb drop.
I'm like, really? God damn it. I had plans.
He has reasons to not want to come out of hiding right now.
I know.
I'm just saying.
I know he does. The ruling clan hiding like a little bitch.
He's handling his business. And his story is actually somewhat tied to True Death's.
Yeah.
Who's also the Ventrue, but a member of the circulatory system. So we've got that one coming up, and I want to do that at some point. We don't have a date when the Primogen Council meeting is going to get called.
No, because it hasn't even been called yet in game. So,
but we may record it whenever we get the people ready for it. We'll record it and have it ready. When it gets called and it's time to play that vignette, it's on deck. We have it sitting there ready to go, and we can go with it. That's the beauty of the vignettes is we can pre-film things we know are coming.
I mean, as a matter of fact,
they've happened.
Tomorrow we're filming one with Spectre Alafet because. At some point in the future, Lily's calling the clan of the Rose. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a gathering of roses.
Yep, and
to
so we're going to shoot a vignette
matters.
For it, so that when it's ready and time for the stream, when it's, as Jason Carr would say, when a dramatically appropriate moment occurs, we bring it up.
We will stream it. Yeah.
Yep. So that's part of our thing. That's going to be a big one for it. But yeah, if Tamshu wants to be Felix's representative, we can work on that. It'll be a brand new kindred to DC. It'll be a one-time visit, and I'll SPC him after that, but it'll be a great one to do. If you really want to be fun, you could be Dr. Walker, the creepy old Ventrue, but I don't think you want to go that far. He's fucking creepy as hell.
He's a monster.
He is. Monster. He was at like 2 or 3 humanity under the old edition.
Yeah, under the old edition.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
Where you could buy humanity.
Yeah. He's pretty rough. Yes, I have to be the dickhead Granger. But that leaves then Cone Rose, the pretty boy who's been chastised a bit too many times. But so, any other good questions? Because it's about time for us to pull off of here.
Yeah, we're about to roll out, but we have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Yep.
I'm excited too, Spectre.
I love doing live ones from time to time because we record a stream, we interact live with the guests in chat.
But we're not on screen talking to you.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
I like this kind of feeling. As you can tell, I like to talk
He does.
a lot, nonstop. So, any other questions?
Any
We'll
other
shoot it,
questions, comments?
I'm just shocked that Lance hasn't tried to spend his points to make me sing yet. I actually added a make Shanky sing option.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's a lot more than 900 points now. Thank you. I'm not going that cheap. I'm not cheap. I cost. It's expensive.
I'm looking to see what it is.
2,000. It's the 2,000 one.
Make Shanky sing.
See? 2,000 points.
Yeah, but I have like 48,000 points.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to make me sing. You have the ultimate...
I'll make him sing Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, see? Now Tamshu's going to make me sing. Okay.
Oh, God.
What? I'm not singing Phantom of the Opera. No. On a lone and lonesome highway east of Omaha, you can listen to the engines moaning out as one long song. You can think about the woman or the girl you knew the night before. But your thoughts will soon be wandering the way they always do when you're riding 16 hours and there's nothing left to do. And you don't feel much like riding, you just wish the trip was through. Here I am on the road again. There I am up on the stage. Here I go playing star again. There I go, turn the page. Well, you walk into a restaurant, strung out from the road, and you feel the eyes upon you as you're shaking off the cold. You pretend it doesn't bother you, but you just want to explode. Sometimes you can't hear 'em talk, other times you can. Oh, the same old cliches. Is it woman, is it man? And you always seem outnumbered. You don't dare make a stand. Here I am on the road again. There I am up on the stage. Here I go, I'm playing star again. There I go, turn the page. Out there in the spotlight, you're a million miles away. Every ounce of energy to try to give away as the sweat pours out your body like the music that you play. Later in the evening as you lie awake in bed with the echoes from the amplifiers ringing in your head, you smoke the day's last cigarette, remembering what she said. I'm not going to do the ending because I can't hit his notes at the end, but that's...
Tamshu said you had a great voice.
You're lying. You're full of shit.
Kel Wink just renewed his sub because you did a great song choice.
That is one of my favorite songs. I used to sing it when I was in Korea.
And guys, those that put in and made him sing, he's not going to sing 3 songs tonight.
No, I'm not singing 3 songs.
That counted for 3 spins, okay? I'm sorry, because he went in the zone.
I would say, ask me next time. Next time I'll break out Kenny Rogers, okay?
Let's all give him applause, everybody.
Tell me next time who else broke out song? Tobias, I think. And
Ed Spector.
And Spector. Bring it up next time I'm live on camera, and you don't have to spend the points and I'll sing one. I'll break out Kenny Rogers on you.
Oh, Jesus Christ. The Gambler.
The Gambler.
The Gambler.
Or Coward of the County.
Oh.
Maybe Tennessee Bottle, but that's a rare one. Not many people know Tennessee Bottle, but I know that one.
The Gambler.
I know a lot of country. I know a lot of rock. I can do Disturbed. I can do The Gambler. I can do Kenny Rogers. I grew up with that one. I can also sing C.W. McCall's Convoy.
Yeah.
Which is an odd one, but you know.
Shaky now has the claps.
Now I got the claps. Thank you. That's
there's antibiotics.
Tim, she doesn't know that joke. Every time before we go live, when I'm turning on the recordings, I do a audio sync clap. I say, clap. Here comes my clap for sync, and normally I follow it up with, "You all got the clap."
And then I say there's antibiotics for that.
Yeah, and now Tim, she said, now I have the claps. Thank you.
Because those of you who don't know, I'm actually a registered nurse.
Yes. But yes, I wasn't looking at chat. You're right. Or Relyn said that I'm not in it. I don't look in the chat. That is one of my favorite songs.
Do I sense a sing-along with Shanky segment coming along?
Oh, God.
Not anytime soon.
We're going to see if Twitch blocks that one. That'll be interesting if they
That'll be
flag
interesting if they flag it.
But whatever.
Or if YouTube demonetizes
no.
us.
And if Urian keeps telling me to sing songs, I'm going to break out Journey on his ass. I know faithfully.
He wants to hear Sounds of Silence, Disturbed's version.
Oh, Jesus.
He'd pay $40K for that.
I can't hit his notes. I am no David Draymond.
No.
Can't do it.
We can sing well together.
Well, Evanescence, but that one is hard to do without the music to go with it at the time. True story. I'm working on trying to learn the guitar chords, get my fingers ready. For those that have ever heard the song To Leave Something Behind, or Leave Something Behind, I wrote new lyrics to that song for Dr. Ludlow, his version of To Leave Something Behind. And as soon as I can learn the guitar chords for it, I'm going to sing it and probably replace our intro with it.
Yeah, we're going to be replacing our intro song with it once he learns the song, if we're still playing DC at that time.
I didn't realize I was writing Ludlow's song when I was changing the lyrics, but when I was done, I realized I wrote Ludlow's song, and it's dark. It's vampire dark. And it's sad, but I think it's a good rendition of that song.
Because honestly, the character of Ludlow, once we actually can do the little vignette with Ludlow and Lily and the telling of Ludlow's story from both perspectives, you will see just how tragically beautiful Ludlow is as a character.
And
it's a masterpiece of a character. Shanky really made a brilliant Malkavian.
Yep.
So
yeah, the curse of him, it's horrifying when you get down to it.
Okay, well, we're going
to go out of here.
We're going to go out of here, guys.
Thank you all for coming. Seriously.
Thank you.
I think we had a lot of people show up.
Yes.
We were a pretty good number, 20-something at one point, which is great.
We were over 20, yep.
Let's see who's active right now. It looks like we've got Coffee Cat doing his San Antonio. Hand me the mouse. I'm going to set this up.
Well, I need to chat first.
I know. We're going to raid Coffee Cat.
Okay, so first I'm going to show our friends.
These are all the other good channels out there. We love these people.
Yep.
Some of them you've seen chatting here tonight. Unconscious Celestial. Tamashu, he's on Lawful Stupid RPGs on Tuesdays. Love it. Wish Junie was here. We love Junie.
Yeah.
Macabre Derek is on right after us.
Yeah.
On our vampire stream. Q Times with their Long Beach by Night right before us. Vancouver by Night. You've got to give me your schedule, Vancouver by Night. I don't know your damn schedule.
Yeah,
because it's not a consistent
erratic,
weekend.
So.
But he's doing a Storyteller Chronicle this weekend, which is talking with a storyteller. And rumor has it I might appear late on that show.
Mm-hmm.
We're still figuring the details because I'd have to show up late. But we're eyeballing me being part of that. So I may be a surprise guest on that with him. Because we love talking.
And if you want to talk to us in chat about our streams and our content and our stories and just anything in general,
just talk shit.
Join us in the Gehenna Gaming Discord. We have a channel there called McStabber's Lounge. You can definitely hang out with us anytime. We are very active in that channel with chatting with viewers.
We work from home.
Yep, we work from home. So we take breaks often and chat.
Well, I've got 5 monitors on my desk and a TV. I can look at that while I'm looking at all the other monitors. It works great.
And if you want to see
our back
content, you can go to our YouTube channel, give it a free subscribe.
Yep.
That way you're notified when we update. We do update videos every week on Saturday.
Yep. If you want to support our channel,
yep,
give us a follow. We love follows. If you really want to support us, give us a subscription. We're not going to get rich off this. We're not trying to make a living off it. But it goes to improve the stream. As you see, we've had a number of improvements over time. If you watch our first episodes, it was rough. It's gotten a lot better. And I'm converting a room to a studio room, a dedicated studio room, which will make it even a better quality.
Yep,
we'll have much better sound and overall. If you're curious about the gear we're using, if you look in the panels below in the Twitch panels, there's an Amazon link to all the gear and the Vampire books. If you're looking for a set of books, you can order it that way. And that shows everything we've got set up. It's not 100% current, but it covers most of it. I know you're about to type something. Twitter, if you want to follow us on Twitter.
Yep, I'm going to post
or
Twitter
any of the
links
players.
Again.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yep, we basically have all of our people that play in our DC by Night Chronicle. Yep. You have Amaranth the Storyteller, me as Lily Sanger. You have Kay Cunning, who plays Locke, Jake Grinnell, who plays Quartermain, the Nosferatu.
And our holdout, Urian.
He got his Twitter finally for Steve Perry.
Yep.
So
And I thank you all for coming.
Yep.
Expect to see more from Mr. Twitch.
Yep.
Hand me the mouse so I can do my thing.
Yep.
Because Mr. Twitch will be doing some more info on his old radio broadcast.
Absolutely. We try to keep our content fresh, and we love you guys for hanging out with us and enjoying our
and
content.
a big shout out to Spectre Alafet.
Yes.
For her summoning Jason Carl.
Absolutely.
I did one, and she one-upped me, and it's amazing. And we love Spectre Alafet.
We love you guys. Have a good night. And we're going to be raiding Coffee Cat with his San Antonio by Night stream.
Yep, we're going to raid Coffee Cat because he does San Antonio by Night, which Macabre Derek's a player.
Yep,
And
Macabre Derek is actually a player in that. Good night, everybody.
So we'll go here and we'll go get ready for the raid.